Morning. I'd like to call this meeting of the House Labor and Industry Committee to order. Jonathan, please take the roll.
Dawkins.
Here.
Brennan.
Here by designation.
Donahue.
Well, he's here in real life.
Gerald.
Here.
Green. Haddock.
Here by designation.
Kincaid. Krajewski. Mursky. Miller. O'Mara.
Here by designation.
Scott.
Here by designation.
Siegel.
Here by designation.
Young. Grove.
Here.
Anderson. Berger. Bernstein.
Designation.
Cooper. Diorsi.
Designation.
Ecker.
Designation.
Fink.
Designation.
Gleim. Jones.
Oh, designation, sorry.
Reichard. Rossi. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to call up House Resolution 228, printers number 1593, introduced by Representative Cutler. Andrew, please explain the resolution.
House Resolution 228 by Representative Cutler designates July 31st to 2025 as Intern Day in Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I'd like to now recognize the prime sponsor of the resolution, Representative Cutler, for brief remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Dawkins, Grove, members of the committee, thank you very much for considering this resolution. Chairman Schweier and myself had put this together to recognize the impacts of experiential learning on many of our young folks today and the value that that holds, not just for individuals in college and the opportunities and the doors that that might open, but also middle school and high school students to have an opportunity to shadow and perhaps be enlightened to new career opportunities that they might not otherwise be able to see. So would certainly be happy to answer any questions and would appreciate an affirmative vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the question is, will the committee report the resolution? Are there any comments, questions, or amendments for the resolution? All right. Seeing none, I'd like to thank the maker of the resolution. I urge all members to support. And is there any negative votes on the resolution? Oh, well, let's roll call, Jonathan.
Dawkins.
Yes.
Brennan. Donahue. Gerald.
Yes.
Green. Haddock. Kincaid. Krajewski. Mursky. Miller. O'Mara. Scott.
Yes by designation.
Siegel.
Yes by designation.
Young. Grove.
Yes.
Anderson. Berger. Bernstein.
Yes, designation.
Cooper. Diorsi.
Yes, designation.
Ecker.
Yes, designation.
Fink. Gleim. Jones.
Yes, designation.
Reichard. Rossi. The amendment, the resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. HR 228 is favorably reported as committed. Next, I would like to call up House Bill 1676, printers number 2045, introduced by Representative Kurowski. Oh, sorry. Ryan, please explain that.
House Bill 1676 establishes a nursing shortage assistance program within the Department of Labor and Industry to provide grants to qualified nursing servicers to assist nursing students with securing post-graduation employment and repaying student loan expenses incurred while earning a nursing degree from an educational institution located in Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I would now like to recognize the prime sponsor of HB 1676 for brief remarks.
Thank you, Chair Dawkins and Chair Grove, for listening to the committee remarks here on House Bill 1676. So House Bill 1676, what it does is it establishes a nursing shortage assistance program to assist nursing students with securing post-graduation employment and the repayment of student loan expenses incurred while obtaining a nursing degree from an educational institution located here in Pennsylvania. I graduated from nursing school. This was painful 35 years ago. This year, that was painful math to do this morning. But the nurses that entered the program 35 years ago, they are all starting to retire. We are facing a huge crisis in Pennsylvania as our Commonwealth ages and continues to age, which is wonderful. Nursing care, bedside care is essential. And as this shortage of registered nurses in hospitals is starting to happen when nurses my age start to be burned out and go into working in other healthcare facilities, not bedside nursing. We need to do something to retain and recruit nurses to stay here in the Commonwealth that have been educated here in the Commonwealth. right now, hospitals are spending an enormous amount of money to do something about this shortage. They're spending money on temporary fixes like contract labor, which would be traveling nurses that are very expensive for the hospital to retain, sign-on bonuses, and internationally educated nurses. So as the hospitals spend money on this problem, I think this program would be a better way for hospitals to retain their nurses, keep them at the bedside, keep them in our Commonwealth hospitals, especially in our rural hospitals. We're all very familiar with what's happening with private equity in our hospitals. Hospitals are closing across the Commonwealth. So these programs, I think, are essential, and hopefully here you in this room will be able to support this assistance program, this House Bill 1676. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. The question is, will the committee report the bill? I have Representative Anderson. Young and Green.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think it's a secret that there are nursing shortages. That's correct, and some of those nursing shortages are certainly desperate. My question is, we pass grant programs constantly here, and I'm not so sure. Somebody had asked in another. I heard somebody ask, can we total it up and see how many grant programs we have passed or tax credits, just to see totally how much we are spending? And this is another grant, and I do believe that the shortage needs to be addressed. But last night, when this came through at the last minute, I thought I'm going to go look for call some nurses, and then I'm going to go look for a nursing job. And here's what I found. The bill states $10K per year, $30K total. If you go to be a nurse at Penn State Health, you can get up to $41,000 in assistance, to include Penn State paying your last 2 semesters in school. They cover the whole thing for you. UPMC, you can get about $46,000 to include a $15,000 signing bonus and $20K chunk loan repayment. Geisinger, you can get $40K tuition assistance and loan repayment, plus a $10,000 signing bonus. And then UPenn, you get $40K loan forgiveness and $10 to $20K on signing bonus. At UPenn and Geisinger, you can get most $50,000 plus loan forgiveness. I don't know if there's a career field in the country that can go to work, agree to work for somebody for 3 years, and get $40,000 to $50,000 to pay off their loans and tuition. I don't know of any. I don't think engineers are getting that kind of reimbursement. I know cops aren't. I certainly know teachers aren't getting that reimbursement. And you're right, we do have a nursing shortage, but it looks like the free market is reimbursing them at a much greater rate than government can reimburse them. So I'm not so sure I see the sense in voting for another unfunded grant program that is going to give peanuts compared to what the hospitals are already giving people. So for that reason, out of equity for other career fields, I am going to be a absolute no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Barger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not a nurse, but you mentioned that there is would you call it contract nursing? The traveling nurses?
Traveling nurses,
They,
yes.
they get paid a lot more?
They do. They have an hourly rate that's higher than the hired nurse at that hospital.
Okay, so, I mean, can you spitball, like, how much is that? If you had to guess.
A contract nurse can make up to, $75, $100 an hour.
Right.
Compared to a registered nurse that's hired by a place like Geisinger, a place like UPMC, sometimes their starting salaries are $40 to $50 an hour.
So
Sometimes
50,
$120 an hour.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean that's
Yeah.
in a good way. I'm glad that people are able to make that kind of living. But what I'm trying to wrap my head around, and again, let me say I'm not a nurse, which is just a polite way of saying I may not know what I'm talking about. All right, but I'm just trying to figure out what is the cause for the nursing shortage, because what it sounds like is that more money isn't solving it. Like if what Rep. Anderson was saying is true, that's not, I mean, is it helping? I don't know. If contract nurses are making 50, 60, 70, 80% more, that's not helping. Then how do we know this grant program will help? Like, how do we know that putting more money into it is the solution to the nursing shortage? I believe that I know there's a nursing shortage. I know this. And I don't like it. I want to see more nurses coming to Pennsylvania and living here and having long, profitable, beneficial careers. But I don't know that the money component is the cause for the nursing shortage. Do you know, if you had to kind of put a label on it, what do you think the cause of the nursing shortage is?
So-
And why do you think that more money will solve it?
So I think this is a program to recruit and retain nurses, specifically bedside. When you talk about nurses, nurses can be nurse practitioners, you can be a nurse anesthesia, you can go work for a pharmaceutical company, you can go work in a doctor's office, you can go do home health care, you can do long-term care, acute care nurses in hospitals. Let me tell you what, it's really hard. I was a nurse 35 years ago at University of Pennsylvania Hospital. I worked in the ICU, I worked in the emergency room, and I ended my career in the operating room. The patients I took care of in the ICU are floor patients now. The acute level of care that is required for these nurses to take care of ICU patients, SICU, NICU, they are very sick. People are being sent home. You know, I used to take care of patients that would come in for a surgical procedure. You'd come in the day before, we'd put your IV in, we'd give you all your instructions, we'd send you to the OR, you'd come back from the OR, you'd stay with us for 2 days, we'd teach you how to use your walker, teach you how to use a Foley catheter. These patients are being sent home like an hour after. Sir, you've got a total hip now? You're sent out of the PACU, you go home from the recovery room. You don't even go to the floor anymore. So the patients that are actually upstairs in the floor on the unit are very sick. And it's hard. It's very hard. I mean, if anything, COVID did. It really did expose the crisis in our hospital. So I think recruiting those type of nurses to come work bedside is very difficult, and keeping them here and keeping them in our hospital. So I think this program, if anything, is, and listen, I'm well aware of the fact that what you're saying, Representative, that, you know, there are other, I'm pretty familiar with other careers that kind of say, hey, we're going to pay for your master's in accounting, in business. You stay here and work with us, we'll pay your tuition. Those programs do exist in other professions, but we are looking at we are looking by the year 2037, which sounds far away, but we got to start training these nurses now. 208,000 registered nurse shortage, no jobs to be filled. So I think this program is just something that we have to try to do to retain and recruit nurses to come work in our hospitals specifically. That's really the shortage, the hospital nurses, bedside nursing,
Gotcha.
acute care nursing. That's
So-
what this program is trying to address.
Thank you. I mean, I really do want to try to understand the substance of the problem, but it sounds like the substance of the problem is we've created an environment that's incredibly difficult for these professionals to work in. And I
Keep
don't
in mind,
know.
we don't have as many nursing programs. The nursing schools themselves can only take a certain amount of students. You know, I went to Villanova University. I think there's 90 students they take, and that's because of the professors they need, the clinical hours they need, the hospitals they need to go to. They'd want to take 400 students. They can't because we can't recruit, and this is another part of the problem.
Do you believe that this grant program would help solve that part of it?
No. I do not think this grant program will solve the fact that we need more professors. We need more aging nurses like myself to stay in education. Those are the nurses that really know how to teach. They have the background, they have the experience. Those are the nurses we need to recruit and stay in education, be preceptors, go and do clinical hours from the 3 p.m. shift. The traditional nursing student like myself went to college. I was a college student, so I got to work that 7 to 3 shift. Now students that are going back to get their BSNs, they are adult learners, so they might have other jobs. They're going to night school. They're going to school in the afternoon, and we don't have professors that are able to work on the floor with these nurses to do the preceptorship. So there's lots of different, I would love to take lots of money from the General Assembly to continue to support all kinds of fields in nursing and healthcare. But I think this program at least addresses the acute care nurses.
I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Young.
Thank you so much for this piece of legislation. I will admittedly and selfishly say that my daughter, who just graduated high school, is interested in nursing. And so as she is going through this journey real time right now, I can better understand the recruitment and the process of trying to get good nurses in these fields and maintain them to be there, because cost is a factor. And so, as speaking from someone who is living this out real time with her daughter, I will say that these are needed for communities that I represent, because we need to make sure that we're communicating the accessibility of such programs for these students who are interested. My question to you really is around the entities. Are these accredited entities that will receive such grants, or?
The nursing school itself? 'Cause
Correct.
Yes, accredited in the Commonwealth, and then they're with partnerships with specific hospitals that take part in this grant program.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted, it wasn't clear in the legislation. I just wanted to make sure that as I communicated, I'm being more truthful and understanding in what I'm communicating. They're accredited nursing programs in the Commonwealth.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Representative Krajewski.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Reps, for your tireless leadership on this issue. I just wanted to make a quick comment because I know it was referenced regarding the University of Pennsylvania, which I actually have the privilege of representing. We have some world-class nurses who come out of Penn, and that's very much true, and I'm grateful that we have a university like Penn that can provide that assistance, but we can also acknowledge that not every university or institution is like the University of Pennsylvania. It has an operating budget of over $15 billion. And so it has the resources to subsidize nursing students, which I'm very grateful for. But I think what the rep is trying to do here is fill in the gaps where we're not so fortunate to have an institution like Penn Med that has the resources to support an emergent workforce. So while I am grateful that we have places like Penn and Penn Med that can provide that kind of support, I am confident that that is not the case in the rest of the state. And so I think this is an urgent piece of legislation to try to fill in those gaps so that every hospital could hopefully reach the kind of standard that we get at Penn Med. And I think this is a step in that direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Green. You wave off. Representative Mirsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rep. Kozarowski, thank you for this legislation. I always find that legislation that is brought forth from practitioners in the fields that we're talking about often is very thoughtful and very pertinent to what's going on. And I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. And to the point that you made, my personal story, my sister, who was a nurse's aide for the last 15, 20 years, her kids are now in high school, and she went back to nursing school. At Jameson School of Nursing, UPMC, they have a satellite up in Erie. And hospitals in our middle-sized cities like Erie, Allentown, Scranton, Reading, they don't have the resources that Philadelphia has. They don't have the resources that Allegheny County has. And so I think this legislation is a good stepping stone. And the same thing that, like Rep. Krajewski said, the universities that are educating the nursing students in Erie, Gannon University, Mercyhurst University, they're small Catholic colleges with not big endowments. They don't have the resources. And so having a program like this, I think, is critical. It's pretty clear. I heard the market takes care of itself. The market isn't taking care of itself, because if it did, there wouldn't be a problem. And so because there is a problem, we have to address it. And I want to thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you. And one statistic here, Guthrie, which is a hospital system in the northern tier, a little north of Scranton, PA, partook in this pilot program. And and it is a very rural health system, but they have 6 times more prospects in the pipeline to date than their target, and they filled 100% of their RN targets, and nobody has dropped out of the program. So I think when you feel appreciated at a job, you feel like they're taking care of you. They want, it is a way to keep because the big thing is retaining. A lot of times these hospital systems will train these nurses, and then they go off to another system. They go out, so it's a loss on the hospital too. So this is another way of keeping our nurses at the bedside.
Thank you. Representative, who we got next? Riker.
Thank you, and thank you for the legislation. My mom actually made a career as an ER nurse, so I fully understand, from the stories that she used to tell what you guys are up against. So thank you for that. I guess my question is if the intent of the legislation is to keep nurses in PA, is there any requirement in here that they have to work X number of years in PA after receiving this grant program? Is there any sort of mechanism that if they were to receive this money and then go to another state or cross the border, that they'd have to pay it back?
No, I don't believe so. And hopefully the compact nursing law will make sure we keep these nurses in our system anyway. So I do not think there's a requirement that you have to work X amount of years or stay in the same system for X amount of years. No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just to help them get more nurses nationwide, I guess.
Not just PA, so we're going to use
have to be
PA tax
part of the
dollars to.
You have to graduate from a Pennsylvania nursing school, be in partnership with that hospital. That's in partnership. It's a partnership with the school and the hospital. But if that nurse stays 6 months, and it's only, keep in mind, it's $10,000 a year that they are given towards their tuition.
Sure.
But if that nurse leaves the Commonwealth, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. If they leave the Commonwealth, I don't think they can continue to be part of the grant program. And
But
get
they
the
wouldn't have to pay
$10,000.
that 10,000
No.
back. So they could come in, they could graduate, work 6 months, get their 10,000 for that year, then they could hop across the border
Yes.
to Maryland or Ohio, and there's no repercussion.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative O'Meara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Rep. Kozarowski, for this piece of legislation. You continue to lead on nursing issues, which I'm really grateful for. One of the questions was asked about what we think is leading to a shortage. And while I am not a nurse, over the last few years, I have gotten to know the nurses in my community because of what happened at the Crozier Health System in Delaware County. Private equity led to the decimation of our health system, and we just lost 4 hospitals in Delaware County, creating a healthcare desert in one of the largest counties in our system. And these nurses do not work at a facility that offers them scholarships or tuition reimbursement. They're working 12-hour shifts. They're working in a situation where they don't know if they're going to have their job in 2 weeks. And now 3,000 people in that system just lost their job. And it's hard for them to want to stay in the profession. And they're seeing traveling nurses come in, taking shifts, getting paid more than they do. That is also really challenging. My best friend is a nurse, my maid of honor. We've been friends. We live together. She works at Penn, actually, in the neurointensive care unit. And the things that we hear her face, whether it's violence from patients, whether it is working night shifts for weeks at a time that lead to her to be able to get back onto a normal schedule when she switches to day shift, getting sued by patients. The challenges that they face are incredibly hard. And I think it's incumbent upon us to recognize that, to Rep. Mirsky's point, if the market was correcting itself, then we wouldn't be facing a shortage of over 200,000 nurses. And one of the things that my friend talks about is wanting to stay in a field where they're having a hard time filling it, so she's not getting paid as much as the people working next to her because traveling nurses are coming in to fill shifts. So I think anything we can do to help recruit and retain, and to Rep. Kozarowski's point, some of these folks are going back to school. They're going into further debt because they have chosen a field that is very expensive and challenging educational-wise. So I feel like we all need to think about who we want taking care of us if we were the ones in the hospital, and urge you to support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Kincaid.
Thank you, Chairman. My sister is a nurse, and I have seen her go through every level of nursing. When she was coming out of high school and into college, because there was such a shortage of nursing programs, she ended up having to leave the university that she was at and go to a tech school so that she could get her LPN, which in the nursing world is referred to as a lower paid nurse. It's not what it actually stands for, but that's what it has the effect of being. And then she got her associate's RN, and then she got her bachelor's RN. And so she has been basically through every level of education to be a nurse. She loves being a nurse. She loved the bedside care, but ultimately the conditions of her employment forced her out, and she had no support in terms of paying for her tuition, paying it off. It was entirely on her. And the message that we send in terms of what we value at the state level to say that we want to invest in our nurses and that employers should do that as well, I think is really important. It's far too frequent that we lose nurses because they're not treated well in the profession, that they're not treated well in their work environment, and it is a multifaceted problem. We don't have enough teachers to train new nurses. Part of that is because people are leaving the bedside now and they are not going into teaching. We are allowing circumstances where our nurses are experiencing violence in the workplace and we're not addressing it. This committee brought up another bill to attempt to address that. This is a multifaceted problem. And if we can invest in trying to help folks alleviate the financial burden in order to continue to be nurses in places that need nurses the most, which really in many ways are our rural areas, those are the hospital systems that are not going to be able to afford to provide the incentives of significant pay and significant tuition reimbursement. But we still need to incentivize people to work in those systems. So this is one piece of a very complex puzzle to be able to address in Pennsylvania the nursing shortage. If we can create in Pennsylvania a place where we say nurses are welcome and nurses are supported and nurses are valued, then we keep nurses in Pennsylvania and they don't go to Ohio and they don't go to Maryland and they don't go to New York or New Jersey or California or Texas or wherever it is that they can find employment that is going to value them. So I appreciate this and I think that this is one significant piece of a complicated puzzle. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say, after reading the bill, that we're not really investing in nurses. We're investing in a qualified nursing servicer. Could you tell me exactly who these qualified nursing services are? Could you just give examples of groups that do this?
The qualified nursing servicer would be the hospital entity where the nurse goes for employment. This program not only tries to help with tuition, but it helps with postgraduate employment, encouraging that nurse to take advantage of a hospital system that is partnered with this grant program to go and work bedside.
Okay, and then just one follow-up. Are there any recruiting requirements of these hospitals to do before the being awarded the grant? Like, do they have to show that they have a recruiting path?
I don't think so. I think they just have a shortage at the hospital for the nursing role that they're trying to fill. So I don't think they have to have a recruitment program, or I think it's just a partnership to help that nurse, that's postgraduate nurse, come work bedside at that hospital system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Rossi.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about the pay for the travel nurses. That doesn't include health care benefits, correct?
No, it does not. They're just contract. I believe the company that they work for, that traveling nurse, that's something that company would have if they required health care. The hospital does not provide that traveling nurse with health care.
So is it safe to say there's a balance because the nurse making less is being provided health care benefits and the entity
I guess you
would
can
be
think
paying
of it that way, yeah. But think,
So-
there's no retainment continuity of care. These are usually 6 to 8 week contracts that, the hospital trains and recruits has to have a contracted labor nurse come and work, and you don't have that that continuity of retaining that nurse at that hospital for a long period of time. And when you get a full-time job, I'm sure the nurses are also offered health care at their employment, but I kind of see your point, but I think the goal of having nurses work in a hospital is having them stay for continuity of care, retain them, keep them in system instead of having to continue to pay high rates to traveling nurses.
I understand that, but I hear the big complaint of the high rate of the traveling nurses, but when you factor that insurance rate in, it's pretty comparable in my opinion. The second question I have is regarding high school students. You know, you mentioned that a lot of the students have to work and they've got other issues. What are we doing for high school students that we could, you know, incorporate their interests? Where I live, my daughter participated in a program through the summer where she went to the hospital and she shadowed doctors and she witnessed surgeries, and she pretty much found out that nursing wasn't for her because she kept passing out and, you know, watching procedures being done. So, you know, on the other end of it, it encouraged students in a very rural area to get involved, to go, you know, spike their interest, really connect with the doctors, see what that environment was like, and then pursue that path and stay in the district or in that area. So I just thought, you know, when I look at this, that would be a good way to fund where we could benefit nurses and bring in younger people, not necessarily older people that you had mentioned.
Yeah. Maybe to Rep. Gleim's point about, you know, the criteria of recruitment, I know that there are certain job fairs. The hospital, you know, Geisinger, where I live, they do, you know, job fairs that specifically go into that high school age group, sort of shadow programs. I know the medical school does it. So I think that would be something of benefit to certainly recruit them at that age to see if they want to get into the healthcare field.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Haddock.
That's all right. So, you know, we've talked about open, everybody agrees that there's a nursing shortage in Pennsylvania. This bill is new. This was never tried in Pennsylvania before, to give an incentive to the students that have to go to a Pennsylvania medical school for nursing, and then they have to be employed in Pennsylvania. If they were to leave Pennsylvania, they don't receive the money. But the other comment of traveling nurses, just to clarify, because I think something was misrepresented, traveling nurses receive an exorbitant salary, but they come from a staffing agency, and staffing agencies are needed. But I was a banker, and when we paid for a staffing agency to hire when we had a shortfall for some reason, besides what we pay that employee that comes into and in this case, that nurse is making sometimes 4 or 5 times what the staff nurse is making, and they work in the same facility next door. They're making an exorbitantly high salary, but the staffing agency, the thing that you missed, and you're saying it's apples to apples, is that the staffing agency is getting paid the premium providing that workforce. And depending upon the private contract between the hospital and the staffing agency could be receiving a large percentage besides the salary of the travel nurse. So it's much more, and hospitals, administrations will tell you this. They actually don't like hiring travel nurses because of the exorbitant cost, not only to the payroll, but to the staffing company. And when you combine both expenses, it's astronomical, and then the hospital loses money overall.
Thank you. I think that's it. So, Chair Grove.
Thank you. So obviously, I think we all agree that we have a nursing staff shortage, right? At the end of the day, this bill looks at kind of like the tail end of that process, recruiting, and Representative Anderson highlighted hospitals that have all those recruiting tools. Like if you're a nurse graduating, they have all these options to say, hey, come work for us, because obviously there's a shortage and they want all the nurses coming to them. You'll probably never hear me say this, but we'll probably have to put money into the pipeline and into grants for students through, and we've done this via, we've had grants for nurses and this. That gets you more people in the pipeline for kind of like this. This is like that end theme. Now, within your legislation, I know it's new, newer bill for this session, but I did want to address one thing you did say. Representative Glein asked you about qualified nursing servicer. You have two definitions in here. One for the partner hospital, and that's the hospital that has entered into a contractual relationship with a qualified nursing servicer and meets all the following, and there's criteria there. Now, the qualified nursing servicer is an entity that does all of the following: contracts with multiple educational institutions, prospective nursing students, and hospitals in a manner that promotes greater access to education and career opportunities, maintains a place of business in the Commonwealth, contracts with multiple hospitals within the Commonwealth, coordinate agreements between prospective. It sounds like a headhunting service. So we asked the department if they're familiar with this. They know of one, and they couldn't think of the name. So how many are there out there? Who are these entities? Like, basically, who are we giving our taxpayer money to? What are these entities? Who are they? How do they work within the nursing? I'm not familiar with these things at all. I don't know how they interact with our education to begin with. I don't know how they interact with nursing students. Like, this is very foreign for me. So I don't understand how that relationship works, who they are, where they're from. Are they multinational and they just headquarters here, so they're going to ship all their profits out of state? Like, I don't know any of those answers.
So I believe that the service partnership is actually the hospital, that the nursing.
Not the way this is drafted. You have the partner hospital is what you're talking about. That's the partner.
Right.
So we have York College, right? So York College has a nursing school. They might partner with UPMC and WellSpan with that relationship. You have this definition of this qualified nursing servicer, and that's the person that gets the money. It is this the way this bill is designed, it's an intermediary who coordinates between the nursing students and hospitals, but it looks like it's only multiple hospitals. So I don't know what that, I don't know who they are. I don't know
I'm going to
how
let Ryan kind of give you a little bit more of an explanation, but you're talking about who's getting the money and how are they paying the tuition. Where is this money going
Ultimately,
to?
it's going to the students to pay it off.
Correct,
But
correct.
initially, the application process is with the qualified nursing servicer may apply.
Gotcha.
The hospital doesn't apply. The nurse doesn't apply. It's the qualified nursing servicer applies. So the question is, who are they? What
Sure. So under the existing program that the representative mentioned, the pilot program that exists now, the entity that provides those services is called Nursing Scholars. They have partnered with Temple, Lehigh Valley Network, Geisinger, Guthrie, Penn Highlands. However, there are other entities. For instance, there's one called Navigate, which does the same aspects for physicians, for recruiting, retaining physicians, and loan repayment assistance. They're called Navigate. They currently operate, I believe it's with Penn State Health, and I believe for physicians for the Lehigh Valley Health Network as well. So those are at least two entities that we're aware of that currently provide these services in the state.
what was the one entity we have a pilot with now?
They're called Nursing Scholars.
Nursing Scholars. Okay. Do we know anything about them? Like, do they operate in other states? Like, do we know? They just, do we know how the pilot started? And is it with Department of Labor? Or is it with some other entity? Do we know anything?
I don't have those details.
Oh, okay.
I do not. I know Nursing Scholars is you could call it a headhunter, I guess, if that's what you want to. But
I don't know how else
it's
to
a
frame it.
recruitment,
Like,
really.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
more of
like,
a recruitment
yeah.
process. That
And my turn. I
yeah.
just didn't know how to
Yeah.
like in
But
my
we are
mind. I'm
headhunting.
thinking,
Believe me, I'm
oh,
all about headhunting for more nurses, for
100%,
sure.
100%.
But that's program, and I'll get more details on it. But that's the program that would be the conduit, I
Okay.
guess, if you want to
All
call
right.
that.
So I'm a little uneasy. Kind of like it sounds like we're doing a bill for one entity. Like I said beforehand, if you're looking at trying to increase the pipeline and get more nurses in the system, we should invest and put money into our CTE programs and stuff like that. Like I don't know what the total of this is. Obviously, it's a budget negotiation thing. But if you're willing to work with us, maybe we can do something in that direction for the floor and make it geared towards getting people into the pipeline. Because I think that's the number one thing we've got to do. The paying off loans can always come back second, but if we're enticing people to go to nursing school, building the pipeline, because we don't we don't have the ability, and that's across the board in multiple stuff. But we got to have people, the frontline people, helping people in bed. Like you've cited your case perfectly on why we need to address the nursing shortage. The sooner we do it, the better off we will be. I'm not sure this hits on getting to that end goal, because right now it's kind of like, here's some money for people that are already in the field versus trying to get the people into the field, right? That's, yeah.
Part of the puzzle. That's
Yeah.
kind of what we're doing
Yeah.
today, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
understood.
I look forward to working with you. I think we can get this in a spot where we're good to go with it. Let's work on the floor. Let's get out of committee, work on the floor.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to urge members to support, obviously, this legislation. We've already laid out the case of the deed, the shortage. I believe we all agree that there's a shortage. I just believe we all have different vehicles to get us to the end goal. So with that, I'm going to ask Jonathan to take the roll.
Dawkins?
Yes.
Brennan? Donahue? Gerald?
Yes.
Green? Haddock? Kincaid? Krajewski? Mursky? Miller? O'Mara?
Yes, by designation.
Scott?
Yes, by designation.
Siegel?
Yes, by designation.
Young? Grove?
No for today.
Anderson? No. Barger? Bernstein?
Designation, no.
Cooper? No. Diorsi?
Designation, no.
Ecker?
Designation, no.
Fink? No. Gleim? No. Jones?
Designation, no.
Reichard? No. Rossi? No. The bill passes as committed.
Thank you. House Bill 1676 is favorably reported as committed, and seeing no other business, this meeting is adjourned.